Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the course on squeezes. And a reminder of where we're up to. We're doing the first of the double squeezes, and we had found that this new position, which involved having two isolated threats in one hand, and then the squeeze worked by having a third suit. And we discovered that if the two threats were in the same hand, you had to have a squeeze card with it and a communication card which accessed a double entry.
Well, you know what? I'll talk to you when because he's
a double entry threat. Except it isn't a threat. It's actually ace king is the double entry, and then the last card could be anything. I call it an irritant to distinguish it from cards which are genuine threats. Now, one thing I forgot to mention about this position, I do actually have a script, but I tend to just give the talk off the top of my head. So one thing I missed was to mention that that particular position is an automatic squeeze position. Now, automatic, I think you saw the term before when I introduced simple squeezes, and I think I probably misdescribed it as saying it worked on both players. The technical definition of an automatic squeeze is that you can swap the threats over from one hand to the other, and that the squeeze will still work. So in the case of the simple squeeze, we had to have a busy player who were holding two threats. Well, if you made the other player busy by swapping the threats over, then the squeeze would still have worked. So that's the simple squeeze being automatic. For us, we, of course, don't need a busy player. In fact, quite the opposite. We want the threats to be split, so we need unhurried players, relaxed players, even smoking marijuana players. But it's the same principle that if you swap the threats over, then the squeeze is still going to work. So we don't care whether one of them is guarding hearts and the other is guarding spades. Those threats can be swapped over, and nevertheless, the squeeze will still work. It's an automatic squeeze. So I should have defined that for you, because if you start ever reading about these things, it's a term commonly used to describe them. One other thing that I could have done earlier in simple things is also discuss the defense to squeezes. Or rather, no, that's a bit, no, let me think. Yes, okay. I think it's both defense, but also it's the last part of our current plan, the watch part of the process. You see, when you watch out for cards in the simple squeeze, it's relatively straightforward. There's only one suit that you're watching for. When you've got a double squeeze, you have to watch out for both of the suits in which they're threat cards. It's the same principle. You see whether one of your threat cards has been turned into a winner because they've discarded a card, and then if not, you fall back on your final option, which in the double squeeze is playing what I call the central suit, the one that's got ace king and an irritant in it. So what have I got to say besides the fact you have to watch both suits? Well, I personally, there's two types of watching. One of them, you're watching a card which is a guard because of its rank against you. So you own the queen of clubs, they own the king. It's a higher ranked card. And that's a fairly easy watch, really, because you are just looking out for the king of clubs, one single card. But if you're looking out for a card which is a threat because of its length, length cards can sometimes be quite small. It's only a threat because you have some reason. Perhaps they opened it with a weak 2, and you know that the suit has therefore broken 6-1 against you. And your threat card could be a very low card, even a 2. In which case, of course, there's hundreds of cards out against it that all beat it, and so you have to watch for all those cards. Now, when you do that, it's rather hard to actually, I've just seen the 5 of hearts, I've just seen the 7 of hearts, I've just seen the jack of hearts. The best thing if you're watching out for a suit where you have a very low ranked card as your threat, is simply to go and count all the cards as they go. So by the time every one of that suit has gone, your threat will have been turned into a winner. And if they don't throw all the hearts, then regardless of which card they've actually thrown, they will have kept a winner. Even if you've seen the king, queen, and jack go, trust me, nobody throws the king, queen, and jack and doesn't keep a lower card as a winner. They will have, if there's one missing, a lower card, and it will be a winner. So best is to count them. And I'm mentioning it now because I personally have found it difficult at times when I've got threats of both types, because I'm watching in one direction for my king, and I'm counting in the other direction for to see whether my two of hearts has turned into a winner. So I just mentioned that I had difficulties, and really, if you want to be strict about this, be absolutely sure whether your squeeze is working, then you should count the suit rather than just watch for the cards which are higher. Not that it matters against most players. Most players will follow what I call the defense of least resistance. That is, they will always hang on to their guards until the last possible moment. And then, because you now know that they've still got suit A guarded and suit B guarded, when as you play the squeeze card they discard, you will actually know that is the suit which has been unguarded, because until then every suit is guarded, and now they've just made a choice on the squeeze card. So if you're playing, most people follow the defense of least resistance. So although I'm telling you really should be counting, then actually a lot of the time you simply get away with the fact that the opposition are really going to tell you which card to play. So I've got one last squeeze for you to have a look at, which hopefully will illustrate some of these concepts. So it's the one that's in front of you,
Alan.
And this is a contract of 7 clubs. So let's go on. I'm not interested in the bidding on this one, into 7 clubs. And the lead is the king of spades. So we're obviously going to win that. But we do our due diligence first. So what have I got? 6 clubs, 2 hearts for 8, spade for 9, and 2 diamonds for 11. So I need 2 more tricks to make this contract, and well, it looks as though I should be able to do that by roughing the hearts. Now it's a bit risky because, of course, somebody might be able to rough in or over rough me, but nevertheless, it's clearly my best chance. Roughing out the diamonds will give me 1 extra trick, but not 2. And if I try to combine the club roughs with diamond roughs, I'm running short of entries. Sorry, with the heart roughs, I'm running short of entries to actually make the contract. So best is actually not to draw any trumps at all, and hope that it's West who's short in the heart suit, because if I can get a rough in with the 7 of hearts, then or the 3 of hearts, then when I play my last heart from dummy, if West has to rough, I can over rough with the queen, and then probably still draw trumps, because either they're 2-2 or the person who trumped had a 3-card suit. Certainly, I don't want to sort of draw any, say, the queen of trumps, leaving myself the ace king to draw trumps, and then try and do my roughs with just the 7 and the 3. So this is my best line, and let's see how it goes. Well, it goes fine for us a bit. Launching immediately then into my hard discards. discards heart ruffs. And this is where it gets complicated. I was supposed to ruff with the 3 and then try to ruff with the 7, but over ruff with the queen. Now, the fact that West has ruffed in with the 8 means that next time he's going to ruff as well and may have a winning trump. So it's now getting a little bit touch and go about whether I should be playing this squeeze. So what I think I'll do, because I'm because I haven't gone through the 5-point plan, but I've by now spotted some elements of a squeeze. I seem to have the Jack of Spades, which is a threat against the Queen, almost certainly on the left. I've got the 6 of Hearts, which is a threat definitely against East, because East has West has shown out a heart, so it has to be East who's guarding the hearts. And oh joy, in dummy is that rare phenomena of Ace, King, and an irritant, a double entry central suit. So I've got another way of making my contract, which is to overruff here and instead go for a double squeeze. So I'm going to draw trumps. And yes, he would have roughed in. I would have gone down if I tried to do this in a direct fashion. What's the opposition? I throw a diamond, say. So I'm now in the position to run this squeeze. I've got loads of squeeze cards. The last one actually being the squeeze card in the club suit. I've got my 2 threats, the heart and the spade, in my south hand, and then I've got my communication card, the 5 of diamonds, to cross over. So nothing to this at all then. I just start playing it off. I needn't keep spades, so that's fine. Throw another one, and I needn't keep that spade, although it doesn't really matter much what I throw from dummy. There. Okay, and now the magic moment where I actually squeeze them. I play off my last card, and West is going to be forced to unguard the diamond. Yep, there it goes. And he's had to keep the Queen of Spades. And East is going to be forced to throw a diamond. Oh, yeah, he's chosen to see if I'm awake. I'm sure I should really have counted the hearts to make absolutely sure. But what he's done is he's kept the diamonds guarded, and he's had to go and throw his heart guard. So actually, once again, I'm going to change tack and make my contract by cashing the heart that is actually set up. And I have just gone down in the contract because he kept the 7 of hearts and he fooled me by throwing the Queen, Jack, and the 10. So this is very embarrassing when it happens to you. I know. I actually did it once. Because you've got to explain to partner afterwards about why you took your attention off the ball. And I say, had I counted the hearts, I would have known that he'd kept a heart. And as I mentioned to you, if they keep a heart, it will be a winner. They never keep the 2 of hearts. They've always got something that's beating the card that you own. So just be aware that if you really want to be the absolutely perfect bridge player, then you've got to count the heart suit. The heart suit was when my threat was due to its length, really, rather than due to being a naturally high card. And the only way to be absolutely sure was the other. You should also learn this from a point of view about should you do this yourself? Well, yes or no. You see, this East took a tremendous risk by throwing the diamonds early on, which is what he had to do to set up this deception. Because against the bulk of the world, most people don't know how to go and play double squeezes. I have already mentioned the commonest things that people do wrong. One of them is if they're in a trump contract, they will never play off their last trump. It's just far too risky to play that. Better to keep it, then I can always trump back in later on. And the instinctive habits of keeping a trump as a safety procedure is just too much for the average player. And if they don't catch that last free card, they'll never squeeze you. You'll always have a spare card. And so you will always set them, unless, of course, you have voluntarily unguarded the diamond suit in order to go down. The other thing that people do, even if it's not a trump contract, is a typical holding you have is, say, 7 hearts, including the ace, king, queen. So one of your chances is that suit breaks 3-3. Now, the non-squeeze player only sees that chance. They don't see the opportunity of fitting it into a squeeze, and normally they lose patience before they've played off all their side suit winners. So they will test out the ace, king, queen to see if that suit is coming in. And again, if you have unguarded that suit as a deceptive maneuver, you are going to find that you're letting it in. So you've actually got to go and look at your opponent. So if you're up against Robert Hammond, I think you can assume that he probably knows how to execute a squeeze, and you should probably go and follow a deceptive course if you can. If you're up against me or most of the people in the world who tend to be asleep when they're playing the contracts, it's a very dangerous thing to do. You probably should be following the defense of least resistance on the basis that they're going to do something wrong. And there is one other situation when you should definitely do this deceptive defense, and that's when you're actually not being squeezed at all. So I haven't got a hand to show this. I thought I could just use the same diagram, but just imagine in this diagram you actually started off with only 2 diamonds, and you had many more hearts or spades or something to compensate that. Now, if you only had 2 diamonds, you were never going to be squeezed because you were never controlling the central suit anyway. You just had 2 diamonds, and they're going to fall underneath the ace and the king. Declarer's busy doing this double squeeze, but actually it's just a simple squeeze. He doesn't know this. Only partners in trouble. Partner's got the queen of spades, got in the spade suit, and all the diamonds. So it's actually a simple squeeze, but he doesn't know that. He thinks it's a double squeeze. So with your long hearts, your job is to make him think it is a double squeeze, and that you have been squeezed out of your heart guard to convince the idiot to cash the 6 of hearts, as some people will do, as you've just seen, and so get them to go down. So if you do this, it's not so hard to spot when it's happening. Once you become familiar with squeezes, the route that Declarer is following is often quite clear cut. And so don't just be sort of lazy and, I've got no problems. Just think about, well, can I be deceptive? And the way to do it is always the same. You'll be able to work out what card Declarer has in the heart suit. Here, it was the 6 of hearts, which you could tell. Partner dropped the 9 and the 8. You always keep the card that just beats it. That is the hardest card for Declarer to actually be able to spot. Declarer is going to be much more aware of cards like Queen, Jacks, and 10s. Otherwise, you don't mess around and follow in a random order, like I'll throw the Queen and then I'll throw the 10 of hearts and so on. That will just draw Declarer's attention to the fact you're doing something unusual. So for the rest of it, follow as though you are following the defense of least resistance. So what you do is you'll skip over a discard of the 7 of hearts, and then you'll follow with the 10, and then the queen, and then the king, the queen, and then if you have it, the king, whatever. Follow all of those, and of course, right at the end, when Declarer is playing off his final squeeze card, that's where you sort of get forced into unguarding your heart suit, apparently that's when you throw your last top card, and that should draw his attention into, oh, look, I think the heart suit has become good. I can cash this. I'm sure this six of hearts is a winner. I am going to cash it. So that's how you actually perform this defense. So they say, if actually you're not being squeezed at all because you only started with two diamonds or two in the central suit, then it's a really easy defense to do, as long as you're awake and alert and thinking to actually do it.
Alan, can I just pop in?
Alan?
Can I just say for a minute, for those who are thinking, oh my goodness me, how can I possibly count the heart suit? I'm just going to give you a little tip. I look at my heart suit, I go ace king, I start from the bottom or the top. So I've got the 2, 3, 4, I'm missing the 5, the 7, the 8, the 9, the 10, the jack and the queen. And I can't see east and west hands, but those are the cards I know I'm missing. So those are the only cards I need to think about. The queen, jack,
you're not
10.
counting that, Adam. You're actually following for the 5, 7, 10, queen, jack and queen, rather than just counting them.
Correct. I don't bother necessarily counting them. I say that's what's missing, and then as they pop up, I still know what's missing at the end. So
you mean you just cross them off your list?
Correct, mentally.
Okay, right, okay. No, I actually literally just count them.
Okay.
I just go 1 gone, 2 gone, 3 gone. That's the 5th one.
Sure,
but certainly the thing is, you just have to be alert to the fact that people can actually fool you.
Yeah, I mean the difference between the counting and actually sort of ticking the cards off is that you don't get fooled into forgetting that the 7 is still out. It's sort
Indeed,
of because it's
it's fine. Either would. We actually are talking different defences, but either works.
Yeah.
The thing is, you cannot rely on the fact that they are following the defence of least resistance, and the discard of their highest heart means they've unguarded the suit. You do have to be a little bit more careful. I should add, if you're doing this defence, as I just suggested, because what you'd like to do is wait half a minute and agonise and only very reluctantly throw your false card of the Queen of Hearts away to let partner really know that you've been squeezed. This, of course, is A, totally unethical, B, actually literally illegal to do so. In bridge, you're not allowed to pantomime, make gestures or anything like that to indicate situations which are not untrue. You're only allowed to make two. Bridge is supposed to be a game of logic and so on. So much as all us budding actors out there would like to go into a little routine that says, oh my God, I'm letting this contract in, it's illegal to do so. So you just have to follow in sequence with your cards, which themselves hopefully should be enough to fool a declarer and let it in. Okay, well, let me move on to my next topic, and I'll put up the next hand, actually. So let's shut that one go. I'll put up the hand, but really, one moment, I'm drinking some water. Okay. And I think we're still... Everybody just look at that. Right, that's fine. Okay. Now, I left you last time with the wonderful and frightening news that really, although I'd introduced this particular squeeze position as a rescue operation where somebody has two isolated threats in the same hand, really it is a squeeze position of its own nature. You don't actually have to start with two isolated threats. You could have two entry threats and convert them into isolated threats by the simple device of cashing the winners that make them entry threats, and then once that winner's gone, they're both elementary threats, single threats. So it's not sufficient to follow the 5-point plan, note that we have a failing squeeze position. Oh, look, there's two isolated threats. There's only one thing we can do, and look for a central suit. Maybe the position is there anyway. And that means, of course, that we have to alter our 5-point plan. And the first alteration is you actually have to go looking right away in the first step when we do key cards. The key card step is to look for the threats. Now it's look for the threats and look to see if you have a central suit. Not so hard at the moment because the central suit has a very specific structure with its double entry, ace, king, and an irritant. So it's not so hard to actually do. You wait until later, though. Okay, now the other thing, though, and this is really bad from the point of view of how complicated things can become. If actually you are starting with entry threats rather than just immediately having single threats, then almost certainly it means you also have a simple squeeze position, because entry threats allow simple squeezes. So you've got another feature to this, which is I've spotted a central suit, so that gives me an option of playing a double squeeze, but I've spotted an entry threat and a single threat in my hand. That gives me the option of playing a positional simple squeeze. You've actually got a choice of what to go and do. So our plan, the where bit is pretty much the same, except where we've done where are the entries for the threats and what threats does that permit. Where's the squeeze card? You've also got to tag in and where are the threats? How is the central suit in the right position? Does that allow a double squeeze? Where is my squeeze card if I do that one? But a new step, which is now I call choice, which is, well, I've actually got two ways of playing the contract. In fact, often more. If you've got a finesse position as well, then you have, should I do the finesse? Should I do the simple squeeze? Should I do the double squeeze? All these options are now becoming available to you. And if your central suit, rather than being just an irritant, is actually a threat as well, then suddenly you'll find you've got dozens of options, because you've now got 3 threats, the 2 in your hand and the 1 in the central suit. That will allow a dozen simple squeezes, and etc., etc. So the choice can get quite large in the number of things that you might be able to do, and I'm afraid there's no way around it. You've just got to, you can't play all of them, but sometimes you can combine them. If I do the double squeeze, I'm also doing one of the simple squeezes, but you basically have to go and make a choice. And although I've sort of said this as though it's a sort of random process, of course it's not as bad as it seems, because always in bridge we do the thing that's most likely to let the contract succeed, to bring it in. So when you're playing, you've done due diligence, and you know, if you were able to make it by a 100% throw in or a guaranteed cross ruff, or you will have done that. So those are the 100% lines. Now we're on to, we have to fall back on the squeezes. Well, the double squeeze is the one with the highest percentage, because the double squeeze requires the threats to be split. And you'll remember I've mentioned the principle of vacant spaces before. If one person is owning a card or a series of cards that you know about, or even hypothesize about, you think, well, I think, you know, let's assume West has the Queen of Diamonds. Then once you place a card in one hand, other cards are slightly more likely to be in the other hand, because if you imagine dealing many, many times, then as you deal out the remaining cards, there's only 12 places or 6 places maybe to put the remaining cards in the hand that's already got a threat, and there's many vacant spaces in the other. They're more likely to end up with a threat. So that means double squeeze tends to be top of your list. After that comes the finesse, because that's 50%, although the show-up squeeze, which basically includes the finesse in it, is slightly better. So there is a simple squeeze that beats the finesse when the squeeze card is also a finesse card. And then down towards the bottom of your choices, there comes the simple squeezes, because they do require both the threats to be in the same hand, and a priori that's less than a 50% chance, but of course always you're influenced as well by what you have learned from the bidding and play. So if you've learned that actually the threats are in the same hand, then forget random percentages about the threats ought to be split and that's the one I should do. You know that West has got both the minors, maybe they bid the unusual no trump or something, in which case the simple squeeze is your best chance. And although, I say, it sounds really awful that you've got all this choice, as a rule, the one you choose will be relatively straightforward to choose. It tends to be the double squeeze. Of course, it's going to be the double squeeze a lot in the examples because I'm going through the section of the course on double squeezes. But in real life, there really is a genuine choice, and you have to integrate your knowledge into your previous knowledge into what you do. Now, there's one other thing I should tell you about this introduction of an entry card with the threat. The threats are in the same hand. For the double squeeze to work. One of them has an entry when we start, might decide to turn it into a single threat, and for the rest of the hand, if you recall, it's got to have a communication card, so I can cross over to the central suit, cash it, and it's got to have a squeeze card. But because I've got an entry, which is a winner, and a squeeze card, I now have more than one way of finishing off at least as a rule, I've got more than one way of finishing off the contract. I can either cash my entry card, good, the classic position, 2 single threats, now I'll cash my squeeze card. But you don't have to. You can cash your squeeze card first, and then, having done that, now cash the entry card and bring us down to 2 single threats, communication card, and the squeeze card, which you're playing off to execute the squeeze. So what difference does it make? Well, in the sense of, are you going to make the contract, it makes no difference whatsoever. You can play either the squeeze card first, squeeze card, which isn't truly a squeeze, the free suit card, that's the right term. You can play off the free suits card and then the winning card in the entry threat, or you can play off the entry threat and then the other. There is, however, a big difference in how people describe these squeezes. You see, if you don't play off the cards in the entry suit, then when you cash your free suit winner, somebody will actually have free cards that they're that aren't actually playing any role in her hand. It's the person who isn't guarding the suit with the entry threat. That person was never keeping that suit anyway, and so he's got a spare card in it. You can cash your free suit squeeze card, but that person isn't squeezed. He can throw away his card in that suit. The other person is squeezed, because although you haven't played off your top card, they've got to keep that suit guarded with an extra card. They get squeezed as you play off the free suit winner. And then, when you get round to cashing the top card in the entry suit, now it's the turn of the other player, because they only managed to survive by throwing this spare card away. But now, this becomes a squeeze card for them as you play the entry card in the entry threat, and they have to go and make their choice between their 2 remaining suits, and it's at that point that they get squeezed and the squeezes become totally effective. So the only difference is when people get squeezed. If you play off the entry cards first to bring us to the classic position of 2 isolated threats, then the squeeze, they both get squeezed together, and that squeeze is called a simultaneous squeeze. And if you decide that you're actually going to keep the entry card until last, and you play off your free suit winner first, then they'll be squeezed in turn. On the first squeeze card, you will squeeze one of them, and then as you play off the top card in the threat suit, then you'll squeeze the other. And that in the literature is called a non-simultaneous squeeze. And I never quite understood the emphasis that people give to this, but people never, if you actually you do a non-simultaneous one, people always make an issue of it, like, he actually did a non-simultaneous squeeze. Whereas to me, I find almost no difference. You've just chosen to reach this squeeze ending that we've been discussing for second week now, in two slightly different ways. And okay, one of them squeezed them separately and the other one squeezed them both together. I do find it hard to get excited about it, but nevertheless, whenever it comes into the literature, people always seem to be distinguishing it. It is true that sometimes you have to make it non-simultaneous, because the only way to reach the right hand for the squeeze to work is the entry card in the threat suit. So it's sometimes you'll be forced to do a non-simultaneous squeeze, but as I say, at the end of the day, you're just reaching this particular squeeze ending. So this is an example which I hope will illustrate this at work for you. So let's begin with the bidding. West opens 3 diamonds, and there is loads of bidding from your side, which doesn't really interest us because there's no bridge interest in it. There's nothing special. So you eventually misbid and reach the contract of 7 no trump. This is probably your fault, because partner will have bid the club suit, and you really should have seen that you have potential additional tricks by roughing a heart. But playing match points especially, people often sort of think, oh, I've got a double stop in diamonds, I'm sure we can make the same number of tricks in no trumps and get a proper top. Not just the top that we were going to get if we just sensibly played in 6 clubs. So here we are in 7 no trumps, and we do our normal due diligence. I've got 2 spades, 2 hearts for 4, 6 clubs for 10, 2 diamonds for 12. So 12 tricks wanting 13. That's always good for squeezes, of course. And where can I go for extra tricks? Well, I can't really duck a spade to set that up. I've got a heart finesse, I've got solid clubs, and I've got no extra trick in diamonds. So what's my squeeze position? Well, I've got the 10 of diamonds. Hey, that's a threat. West bid 3 diamonds. He's led the queen. It's a guaranteed situation that West has got the jack, so that's great. The Jack of Hearts is also a threat card. It doesn't have to be used as a finesse. So I got an option of using hearts as threat. And finally, magic, I've got Ace, King, 7 of spades in my own hand. And that is a double entry central suit. 7 of hearts is 7 of spades is my irritant, and the Ace King are the double entry that I would need for a double squeeze to work. So I got to now work out what is possible and what I should actually do. So one possibility is to take the finesse in hearts. Not madly enthusiastic about this. The principle of vacant spaces says West has probably got 7 diamonds for his opening bid, 6 vacant spaces to take the queen. East, on the other hand, will have just 1 diamond. So East will have 12 vacant spaces, any one of which might be the queen. The odds are actually 2 to 1 that the finesse is going to fail. I've got an entry threat with the Ace Jack of Hearts. I've got a single threat with the 10 of diamonds. They're in the same hand, so that permits a simple positional squeeze, and it's positional on the person before the threat, so that's West. So as long as West has the Queen of Hearts as well as the Jack of Diamonds, I can squeeze him and make the contract. Well, I suppose that's a slightly better line, because this is also a show-up squeeze. It gains if our East has Queen, Doubleton, Heart. But to be honest, it's only a theoretical gain. Can you really imagine that? Let's say 2 hearts. Can you imagine that West has 6 hearts as well as his 7-card diamond suit? I just, it's not going to happen. So pretty much the same odds here about taking the finesse. And now we see, can we do a double squeeze? Well, yes, I can. The threats are both in the north hand. The communication card is there, the 8 of spades, so my central suit is in the south hand. So, yes, the double squeeze is going to work as well. And it's a fairly obvious choice here, isn't it? I mean, we've just said the Queen of Hearts is 2-1 to be with East. We're going to make a play that requires the Queen of Hearts to be with East, because that's the percentage, and the double squeeze requires the threats to be split. So we know West has the Jack of Diamonds. We think it's good odds that East has the Queen of Hearts. We are going to choose the double squeeze as our way of going forward. So how do we implement the double squeeze? Well, we want to get rid of the Ace King of Diamonds. We don't want a blocking card in front of our 10 of Diamonds threat. And we're going to play off the Ace of Hearts to turn King and Ace of Hearts to turn the Jack into a threat. And we're going to play over all those clubs. That's the free suit. We've only got 1 free suit. We have 2 threat suits, 1 central suit, and 1 free suit. And then we're going to play all of those off and implement the squeeze. So let me do most of this for you. Let's unblock the diamond suit. And let me see. I've got to keep the spades as entries. I can play off the hearts now or later. I'm going to play off a load of the clubs to get them out of the way, because I have to go backwards to show the 2 things I want to go and show you. So let me play off many of the clubs just to reach a position where we've throw that, and I can play another one there. And I can play another one before I need to stop and talk to you. What do I throw? Well, I can't throw I've got to throw a spade, yes. I'm keeping my irritant. And there, okay, here we go. So, I've now reached a position where I've still got a free suit winner, the 5 of clubs, and I've still got my King and Ace of Hearts, which are communication cards in my threat suit. And I've still, at this point, got a choice of how to play the contract. I can choose to play off the communication suit first and then the squeeze card, or vice versa. So I'm going to show you the full hand to show you how they operate when we do this. So that's table option, teaching option, right, here you go. Here is the full hand. And you can see we were right. The Queen of Hearts is with the East hand, and this squeeze is going to work. At the moment, they're both been following the defense of least resistance, so they both gone and kept the cover in the central suit. So first of all, I'm going to play off the communication suit. Sorry, the threat suit, to set up the isolated threat on its own. Now all I've got is my free suit winner, and when I play it, you can see that this is the moment when both of them on the same trick become squeezed. So East is never going to throw with the Queen of Hearts, not with the Jack of Hearts glaring at him or her in dummy, so they let go of spade. and West has the same problem. The 10 of diamonds is visible there in dummy. He's going to throw a spade as well, and suddenly, I won't play it through, but you can see ace, king, and another spade. You brought in the contract by the double squares. Now let me go back a few cards to where we had a choice. Okay, I think this was the position. Yeah, this was it. Here was my last moment to choose between playing the threat suit or the free suit. So this time, instead of clearing the threat suit and turning the jack into a single threat, I'm going to play off my free suit winner and see what happens when I play the hand this way. Well, you can see that East is squeezed immediately because although you haven't played off the ace and king of hearts, East still has to go and keep 3 hearts. So really, East has to do what she doesn't want to go do, which is throw away one of her spades. And that's East dealt with, but not West, because here's West looking after the jack of diamonds and the spade suit, but hey, no problem. I've got loads of idle cards doing absolutely nothing. West is not squeezed, at least not yet. Now we play off our threat suit winners there. And now when I play back towards my ace of hearts, this is the stand moment for West. So 2 tricks later, West has to go and make the choice between the jack of diamonds, setting up the 10, or as almost certainly they will do, the 2 of spades, setting up the spade suit. And we've reached the same position, but we've reached it in slightly different ways, where the second way, because we played the threat suit as our last squeeze card, it was a non-simultaneous squeeze, and one person was squeezed at one point and then the other was squeezed later on. To my mind, as I said, it makes absolutely no difference. So which do I recommend? Well, very definitely you should always play the non-simultaneous double squeeze, because when the competition's over and you're all in the bar discussing the hands, you drop to your friends, it's board 6. You say, I made a double squeeze on board 6, and they say, wow, really? Oh, that's just brilliant. Well done, they say. Or you can say, on board 6, I played a non-simultaneous double squeeze, and now their feelings where you just go through, they're so in admiration. I've never done a non-simultaneous double squeeze in my life. So it actually makes no difference whatsoever to the outcome, but if you want your friends to have you in this just idol-like regard, it's got to be the non-simultaneous double squeeze that you're playing for. But never forget your humble origins. You're really just simply playing for the double squeeze position of 2 isolated threats, a communication card to the central suit. Now, I started late, Adam. I need a bit of advice. I do, of course, have loads of examples to practice the new choice part of our 6-point plan. Should I do that, or how late did we start? Should I do one more?
Well, we've been going for 50 minutes. So how long is this going to take?
They normally take 15 minutes or 20. You don't like things over an hour. Right.
I think
what I'll do then, okay, I'll call it a day for now. So now I'll talk to. So okay, just then a reminder now of.
Alan, someone's just asking if you will claim, so they can.
Oh my God, I haven't claimed.
Yeah, because they want to see the all the hands.
Oh my God, didn't I? I thought I showed the whole.
Yeah, you did, but let's.
Oh, I see. Right, to show the whole hand. Good.
Yeah.
Claim button at the bottom, silly me. There we go. Claiming my contract, so the hands back up again. Sorry. Okay. Right, okay. So, the big thing of today then, although we ourselves haven't practiced any examples, is that we've got a new plan. It's a 6-point plan. The steps have become altered. The first step now involves not only looking for threats, but also looking for central suits. Fairly easy so far, ace, king and another. where you've got to check where the threats are, where the entries are, and what they allow, but also where is the central suit? Is it in the right position to allow a double squeeze? And then we've got a totally new thing, which is I've almost always got a choice of what to play. So work out what are your options and then go for the best one, which tends to be in abstract the double squeeze, but then people are always bidding or making plays that tell you things, and these might influence what you actually do. So we'll practice all those. I'll launch straight into it next time. I won't actually do a hand myself. I'll invite somebody into the hot seat, and we can start. Is that all right then? Okay, I'm finishing off here. Thank you, Anna.
Okay, so before everyone goes, before you shut the Zoom down, just remember, anyone who's not been before or who wants to see more of these lessons on YouTube, I record each of these lessons, and Alan and I also do some single hand lessons, which are much shorter to watch. They're all around 8 to 10 minutes, and you'll find those on YouTube if you search for Cedar's Squeezes. That's Cedar, as you can see Alan's name there, then an apostrophe, S, and Squeezes. If you search for that on YouTube, you'll find about a dozen or so videos on squeezes, including all of these sessions that we've had. This is about the 7th, I think, now. So have a look there. Make a note of it. Make a note of it. Cedar's Squeezes on YouTube. And Alan has also recorded a complete set of introductions to squeezes. There are 6 separate 7 or 8 minute videos introducing squeezes to you, and then we've put about 4 or 5 together with individual hands showing how those squeezes work. Thanks all for joining us, and we'll see you next week at the same time.
And we should also all thank Kathy. It was Kathy who actually woke me up. She managed to phone both the house phone and my mobile phone, and eventually I wouldn't be here but for Kathy. Plus, of course, she looks after the call for me. So thank you, Kathy, for Normally I set an alarm, but when I went to bed at 2, I just never imagined I'd still be asleep at 3 o'clock the next day. Okay, bye-bye, everybody. See you all next week.
Thanks very much.